So this is kind of meant to be a bit of an animated mood board for our 1760s and 1770s grey suit that we're working on. So we've already done our research in the sort of actual museums. We've studied about 4 1760s suits at the moment, and hoping to add more, but for this project that's kind of ample, and we've based it on a 1760s to 1770s suit in the Snows Hill collection. So all of the construction techniques and the pattern cutting has been taken from that. But just to show you kind of what look we're going for, to check out this guy. I love this kind of plain grey all-in-one suit. It feels so kind of functional but beautiful. So this is William Strahan, nicked lovingly from Google's art project. Next you have An Unknown Family by Wheatley. This has sort of been dated 1775 to 80, so you're beginning to get out of our little timeline there. But just a wonderful example of that all grey look. And the next 3 images are some images from actual garments in the museums. You've got 1760s to 69 British wool suit here in the Met. The next one is also from the Met. It's silk, but it's amazing little blue sort of circle figured. It's really stunning silk. That's 1760s from the Met. And then this other one is from the John Bright collection, which I've not heard of before, but check out this one. It's so good. What an amazing garment. So these details, these suits are kind of how we're sort of basing what we're looking for going for our suit. So the John Bright collection one, he's been dated mid-18th century, and I kind of, you can definitely see is a little earlier, whether he's 1750s or kind of encroaching into the early 1760s, it's unclear, but that cuff is definitely bigger. So they begin to get reduced in size as you get near the 1760s and 70s. They begin to have less button, they don't hang over the sleeve so much, it begins to be a little bit more fitting to the sleeve, not completely, but definitely more so, and shallower, so they're less of a feature. Move into the 1760s, and they're just that little bit neater. Move into the 1770s and 1780s and 1790s, and by the sort of 80s and 90s, it's become almost sort of fit to the sleeve, much sort of shallower. So you're only looking at like 4 inches, sort of 3, 4, 5 inches, with very minimal decorations. So maybe just a bit of embroidery if it's a court suit, or just the plain buttons with no buttonholes. Prior to that, they tend to have buttonholes, and maybe even be functioning and with a lot more buttons on it, which you can see in the John Bright guy. The other detail that is really sort of becoming predominant in the 1760s, and very much carried on into the obviously carries on, but is that cutaway shape. This means you're actually seeing the breeches a lot more. So I think this is when sort of split falls and half falls begin to come in. It's more decorative than the button fly. But it means also that you can't actually buttonhole your coat anymore from the neck down to the hem. So only sort of like for the 1760s anyway, sort of like the waist up is kind of actually functioning. I think at the 1760s, the coats that we've studied anyway, the buttonholes are all still functioning. Like they all still actual buttonholes, but you can only really do the top ones up. So that's that kind of detail there. You can see that on all of the coats here. The next detail is one we can't help noticing when we take a pattern from the original coats. And what's really good is when you get a 3-piece suit, so you've got the same waistcoat alongside it, because you can see the differences in the necklines. Now, I don't know if this is because somebody else has pattern cutted it, or because it's purposeful. The waistcoat has a different purpose. I'm it's still learning, but there's a lovely high up, really sort of into your Adam's apple almost kind of cut to these coats, but it's very much sitting sort of high up on the neck. Whether how long this has come from, like how much it's in the 1710s, 20s, 30s, we haven't sort of studied enough coats to understand, but it's definitely a feature you can see on the pattern cutting of these 1760s coats. And the final detail is the pocket placement. Now, we're still kind of mid trying to get our heads around this. We've studied a 1720s coat, and I'm not sure if the depth has changed, but at this stage with the cutaway, it's kind of forced the pocket back slightly. It might be one of the reasons why it's become slightly higher up, but it begins to sit in sort of a perfect alignment with the button at the top of the vent, which might be the same for earlier coats, but it definitely feels like, well, the 1720s one we've seen, they were incredibly low. But yeah, so this is this kind of line from the back button across the top of the pocket to the front. It's just like a nice detail that you can't help but admire. So that's our 1760s mood board. And yeah, and we'll just continue showing you glimpses of the coat as we make it.